Today we're examining Jeffrey Dahmer, the Milwaukee cannibal who killed 17 men. But this isn't just about his crimes. We're exploring the exact psychological moments that transformed an abandoned child into America's most disturbing killer. At age 4, Jeffrey Dahmer performed surgery on dead animals in his basement. His father, a chemist, thought his son showed scientific curiosity. Psychologists later identified this as the first sign of necrophilia developing in a severely disturbed child. Even more disturbing, Dahmer collected roadkill and dissolved the flesh in acid to examine bones. He arranged animal skeletons in precise patterns. His parents, consumed by their failing marriage, never questioned why their 6-year-old spent hours alone with dead creatures. This actually happened in Bath, Ohio, during the 1960s. Court psychologist Dr. Judith Becker would later testify that Dahmer's pathology began before kindergarten. His case would revolutionize understanding of how serial killers develop from traumatized children into predators. The Dahmer household in 1966 appeared perfectly suburban. Lionel worked as a research chemist while Joyce battled depression and anxiety. Behind white picket fences, their eldest son, Jeffrey, retreated into increasingly dark fantasies that no one noticed or understood. Joyce Dahmer's mental illness consumed the household atmosphere completely. She attempted suicide while pregnant with Jeffrey's brother, David. Young Jeffrey witnessed his mother's overdose attempt, seizures, and constant pill consumption. This chaos became his normal childhood experience of family life. Lionel Dahmer remained emotionally absent, escaping into his chemistry research. He worked late nights and weekends, avoiding his unstable wife. Jeffrey learned that emotional connection meant abandonment. Love equaled pain. The only reliable companions were the dead animals he collected. At age 8, a hernia operation triggered something profound in Jeffrey. The surgery invaded his body without consent. He felt violated and powerless. Psychologists believe this medical trauma fused with abandonment issues, creating his need to control and possess others completely. Jeffrey's teacher noticed him becoming increasingly withdrawn after the surgery. He stopped playing with classmates, refused participation in group activities, and stared blankly during lessons. She reported concerns to his parents, who dismissed it as temporary shyness rather than trauma response. Meanwhile, Jeffrey discovered his father's chemistry books and equipment. Lionel encouraged this interest, teaching him to bleach chicken bones and preserve insects. Neither recognized they were training a future killer in body disposal techniques while desperately seeking father-son connection. The roadkill experiments escalated dramatically by age 10. Jeffrey impaled dog heads on sticks behind his house. He crucified frogs and cats. Neighbors' missing pets ended up in his collection. Yet his parents never investigated the smell from his clubhouse. Here's what psychiatrists later found shocking. Jeffrey simultaneously maintained good grades and appeared normal at school. This cognitive dissonance, presenting a false self while harboring violent fantasies, indicated sophisticated psychological compartmentalization rarely seen in children but common in psychopaths. At age 12, Jeffrey experienced his first sexual thoughts about men. In the 1970s, Ohio, homosexuality remained heavily stigmatized. He couldn't discuss these feelings with anyone. The shame merged with his death obsessions, creating a toxic fusion of sex and violence. His parents' marriage finally exploded in 1977. Violent arguments shook the house nightly. Lionel moved out. Joyce disappeared for days. 15-year-old Jeffrey was literally abandoned in an empty house with no food, no money, and no supervision whatsoever. During this abandonment, Jeffrey discovered alcohol. Beer numbed his escalating fantasies about controlling and possessing other men. He drank throughout the school day, smuggling liquor in army jacket pockets. Teachers smelled alcohol but never reported it to authorities or parents. Jeffrey developed a disturbing ritual at age 16. He would lie on his basement floor, surrounded by animal bones, fantasizing about having complete control over another person. These sessions lasted hours. The fantasies grew more violent and specific each time. A jogger changed everything. Jeffrey became obsessed with a shirtless runner passing his house daily. He fantasized about knocking him unconscious and keeping him. He actually hid in bushes with a baseball bat, but couldn't act on the impulse yet. High school classmates later recalled Jeffrey's pranks differently after learning the truth. He would fake seizures, make roadkill jokes, and draw chalk body outlines. What seemed like dark humor was actually him testing boundaries and revealing his obsessions publicly. The abandonment climaxed during Jeffrey's senior year. His mother left with his brother, giving Jeffrey no forwarding address. His father already lived elsewhere. At 17, Jeffrey was completely alone in the family home, drinking heavily and planning his first murder. 3 weeks after graduation, 18-year-old Jeffrey picked up hitchhiker Stephen Hicks. He brought him home to drink beer and listen to music. When Hicks tried to leave, Jeffrey's abandonment terror triggered. He killed to prevent another person from leaving him. The murder happened impulsively, but the aftermath revealed calculation. Jeffrey had sex with Hicks's corpse, then methodically dismembered the body. He used his father's chemistry knowledge, dissolving flesh in acid. The bones were pulverized and scattered. Nobody suspected the quiet teenager. Psychologist Dr. Judith Becker later identified this as the crystallizing moment. The murder fulfilled every psychological need: control, possession, prevention of abandonment, and sexual gratification. Jeffrey discovered that killing provided what life never had: complete power over another human being. Remarkably, Jeffrey didn't kill again for 9 years. His father enrolled him at Ohio State University, hoping education would help. Instead, Jeffrey drank constantly, never attended classes, and lived in alcoholic isolation. He was expelled after 1 semester for non-attendance. Desperate, Lionel forced Jeffrey to enlist in the army. Military structure might provide the discipline he lacked. Jeffrey served as a medical specialist in Germany from 1979 to 1981. Fellow soldiers later testified he drugged and raped them repeatedly during service. The Army discharged Jeffrey for alcoholism in 1981. Another rejection, another abandonment. He moved to Miami Beach, living on beaches and in missions. Rock bottom approached. The fantasies intensified. He needed alcohol to suppress them, but alcohol also lowered inhibitions. Jeffrey's grandmother, Catherine, offered him sanctuary in West Allis, Wisconsin. She hoped family love could save him. For 6 years, he lived in her basement, working at a blood plasma center. The death fantasies grew stronger, fueled by access to blood. In 1985, Jeffrey discovered Milwaukee's gay bathhouses and bars. He drugged men's drinks to render them unconscious. He would then lay on them, listening to their heartbeats and stomachs. This pseudo-intimacy satisfied him temporarily, but the compulsion demanded more control. The psychological dam broke in November 1987. Jeffrey killed Stephen Tuomi at the Ambassador Hotel. He claimed no memory of the murder, waking up to find Tuomi dead. Psychologists identified this as dissociation, his mind splitting to commit acts too horrific to process. After Tuomi, the murders accelerated rapidly. Jeffrey developed a ritual: meet men at bars, drug them, strangle them, have sex with corpses, then dismember and preserve parts. Each killing required more depravity to achieve the same psychological satisfaction level. Dr. Becker discovered Jeffrey's core delusion during evaluation. He believed he could create zombies, living but completely submissive partners who couldn't abandon him. He drilled holes in victims' skulls, injecting acid to destroy their will while keeping them alive. The grandmother's house became a killing ground. Jeffrey murdered 3 men in her basement while she slept upstairs. She complained about smells and strange noises, but never investigated. Her love blinded her to the monster living beneath her feet. In 1988, grandmother Catherine finally evicted Jeffrey after finding a mannequin in his closet. Another abandonment triggered escalation. He moved to apartment 213 at Oxford Apartments. Now, completely unsupervised, his killing entered its most horrific phase with no restraints remaining. The Oxford Apartments became a factory of death. Jeffrey installed locks, soundproofing, and a sophisticated acid disposal system. He preserved skulls as trophies, kept hearts in freezers, and photographed each stage of dismemberment. The apartment became his psychological sanctuary and victims' hell. Neighbors complained constantly about putrid smells from apartment 213. They heard power tools at night, screaming and fighting. Manager confronted Jeffrey repeatedly. He blamed spoiled meat, broken freezer, or fish tanks. His middle-class white appearance prevented serious investigation despite overwhelming evidence. Jeffrey's job at Ambrosia Chocolate Factory provided perfect cover. He worked nights, slept days, appeared responsible. Co-workers described him as quiet but normal. Nobody suspected he sometimes brought human sandwiches to work, consuming victims to possess them completely and permanently. The psychological compulsion became all-consuming by 1990. Jeffrey killed monthly, then weekly. He needed constant victims to maintain equilibrium. Without fresh kills, he experienced withdrawal-like symptoms: shaking, sweating, racing thoughts. Murder became addiction, each dose requiring increased depravity for effect. May 1991 marked peak depravity. 14-year-old Conorak synthesomphone escaped Jeffrey's apartment naked, bleeding, and drugged. Police arrived. Jeffrey convinced officers Conorak was his drunk boyfriend. They returned the child to Jeffrey, who murdered him immediately after police left. This police failure revealed systemic prejudice enabling Jeffrey. Officers dismissed concerned black neighbors, believed a white man's lies, and ignored obvious child abuse. They literally handed a victim back to his killer because homosexuality disgusted them more than protecting children. Dr. Becker identified Jeffrey's final psychological phase: complete decompensation. Reality and fantasy merged entirely. He built altars from skulls, planned temple construction from bodies, and believed consuming victims would grant their power. Psychosis replaced personality disorder. The human, Jeffrey, ceased existing. By July 1991, Jeffrey killed almost weekly. Disposal became sloppy. Body parts accumulated faster than acid could dissolve them. The apartment reeked of death. He stopped hiding evidence, leaving heads in refrigerators and torsos in barrels. Unconsciously, he wanted discovery. Tracy Edwards changed everything on July 22, 1991. Jeffrey's usual drugs failed. Edwards remained conscious during 4 hours of terror. He witnessed the altar, smelled decomposition, saw photographs of dismembered victims. Jeffrey wielded a knife, oscillating between killing and releasing him. Edwards psychologically manipulated Jeffrey brilliantly. He pretended friendship, suggested watching movies, remained calm despite terror. When Jeffrey relaxed momentarily, Edwards punched him and escaped. He flagged down police, handcuffs dangling from one wrist, ending Jeffrey's 13-year killing spree forever. Detective Patrick Kennedy entered apartment 213 and immediately knew something was wrong. The smell hit first: sweet, putrid death. Opening the refrigerator revealed a severed head. The freezer contained hearts and organs. Photographs showed dismemberment stages. Hell existed in Milwaukee. Jeffrey's arrest revealed 17 victims over 13 years. Young men of color predominantly, societies marginalized whose disappearances weren't investigated aggressively. Each had dreams, families, futures before encountering Jeffrey. Their names deserve remembrance more than their killer's infamy or psychological analysis. During interrogation, Jeffrey exhibited no emotion except relief. He confessed completely, providing horrific details. Detective Kennedy struggled to maintain composure. Jeffrey explained everything matter-of-factly, as if describing mundane activities rather than murders. The absence of remorse chilled investigators more than crimes themselves. Prison interviews revealed Jeffrey's final psychological state. He acknowledged his crimes intellectually, but couldn't feel empathy. He understood victims suffered, but couldn't emotionally connect to their pain. The abandonment-traumatized child had become completely disconnected from human emotion, forever psychologically isolated. Dr. Becker's final diagnosis shocked the court. Jeffrey wasn't legally insane. He knew right from wrong, but couldn't stop. His compulsions operated like addiction, requiring increasingly extreme acts for satisfaction. He chose evil repeatedly, making him responsible despite severe mental illness. On November 28, 1994, fellow inmate Christopher Scarver killed Jeffrey in prison. Scarver claimed God ordered the execution. Jeffrey didn't resist, perhaps welcoming death's release from psychological torment. The abandoned child who became a monster finally found the peace that eluded him in life. Lionel Dahmer wrote a book exploring his failures as a father. He identified missed warning signs, acknowledged emotional abandonment, and accepted partial responsibility. His grief encompassed both his son's victims and the child he failed to save from becoming a monster. Jeffrey Dahmer's case revolutionized criminal psychology forever. It proved serial killers aren't born, but created through trauma, abandonment, and untreated mental illness. What aspects of his psychological development disturbed you most? Subscribe for more true crime psychology, and next week we examine Ted Bundy's charm as a weapon.